He had the talent. He had the vision. But Hollywood refused to see him as a leading man. This is the story of how Bruce Lee fought his toughest battle, not in the dojo, but against the closed doors of an industry that couldn't see past his race. By the early 1960s, Bruce Lee wasn't just another martial artist in America. He was a phenomenon. His Jun Fan Kung Fu Institute was attracting students from all walks of life, including Hollywood celebrities like Steve McQueen and James Coburn. They weren't just learning self-defense. They were learning a new philosophy of movement and self-expression. Word of this charismatic and unbelievably skilled teacher began to spread through the elite circles of Los Angeles. It was his electrifying demonstration at the 1960 for Long Beach International Karate Championships that really put him on the radar. His famous one-inch punch and his two-finger push-ups were not just tricks. They were displays of power and control that left everyone speechless. This performance caught the eye of a television producer, and soon, Hollywood came calling. In 1966, Bruce Lee landed the role of Kato in the television series The Green Hornet. On paper, he was the sidekick, the chauffeur to the titular hero. But on screen, something incredible happened. Whenever Kato was in action, the show came alive. Audiences had never seen anything like it. His movements were a blur of speed and precision, a beautiful yet brutal dance. He didn't just fight, he performed. In many scenes, the dynamic and mysterious Kato completely outshined the main character. The show itself only lasted for one season, but its impact, especially in syndication, was immense. Fan mail poured in, mostly for Kato. Kids on playgrounds weren't pretending to be the Green Hornet. They were mimicking Kato's signature fighting style and his iconic battle cry. Bruce Lee had become a cult hero. It seemed like the logical next step was stardom. He had proven his appeal, his charisma, and his unique talent. But that's not what happened. Despite his clear popularity, Bruce Lee found himself hitting a thick, invisible wall. Hollywood in the 1960s was a place of rigid stereotypes. Asian actors were almost exclusively cast in supporting, often demeaning, roles. They were the laundrymen, the cooks, the villains with Fu Manchu mustaches, or the submissive sidekicks. The idea of an Asian man as a romantic lead, a complex hero, was simply unthinkable to the studio executives who held the power. Bruce was offered parts, but they were the very stereotypes he despised. He was a proud man, deeply connected to his heritage, and he refused to play a caricature for a paycheck. He knew he was more than a sidekick. He knew he was a leading man. Frustrated but not defeated, Bruce decided that if Hollywood wouldn't create the right roles, he would create them himself. He poured his energy and intellect into developing his own stories. He envisioned films that would showcase martial arts not just as violence, but as an art form, a path to self-discovery. He wanted to portray Asian characters as they truly were, intelligent, strong, complex, and heroic. One of his most passionate projects was a concept he called the warrior. It was about a Shaolin monk who travels to the American Old West, using his martial arts skills and Eastern philosophy to navigate a violent and unfamiliar land. It was a brilliant fusion of the classic Western with the martial arts genre, a story of cultural clash and understanding. He pitched it tirelessly to studios, including Warner Brothers. He was perfect for the lead role. He had literally created it for himself. The studios were intrigued by the concept, but not by the man who created it. The project was ultimately rejected. The official reason given was that American audiences weren't ready for an Asian lead in a primetime series. It was a crushing blow. The disappointment turned to outrage shortly after when a new series titled Kung Fu began to air. The premise was eerily similar, a Shaolin monk wandering the American West. But instead of Bruce Lee, the lead role was given to a white actor, David Carradine, who had no martial arts background. For Bruce, this wasn't just a professional setback, it was a profound and personal insult. It was the ultimate confirmation of his fears. Hollywood admired his skill. They would happily use his choreography and his action sequences, but they did not trust him to carry a show. They saw his talent, but not his humanity. They wanted his art, but not his face. This period was one of the lowest points in his life. The frustration mounted. He had a family to support, and the opportunities in America were drying up. He felt trapped, his immense potential stifled by prejudice. It was during this time that he suffered a serious back injury while training. Doctors told him he might never kick again, that his martial arts career could be over. Confined to his bed for months, Bruce didn't wallow in self-pity. He used the time to read, to write, and to refine his philosophy, Jeet Kune Do. He documented his training methods and his deepest thoughts on life in combat, work that would later be compiled into the book The Tao of Jeet Do. This period of forced stillness sharpened his mind and hardened his resolve. He wasn't just going to recover, he was going to come back stronger than ever. And he did, but he realized he couldn't do it in Hollywood. The system was too entrenched, too resistant to change. So, in 1971, Bruce made a life-altering decision. He packed his bags and moved his family back to Hong Kong. He was returning to the place of his birth, a place where he had been a child actor, but he expected to arrive in relative anonymity. He had been gone for over a decade, and he assumed most people had forgotten him. He could not have been more wrong. When he arrived, he found something completely unexpected. The Green Hornet, which had been a modest success in the U.S., had been a massive hit across Asia, where it was marketed as the Kato Show. Crowds recognized him on the street. He wasn't a sidekick here. He was the star. Producers, who saw the fervor he inspired, immediately took interest. In Hollywood, the doors had been slammed shut. In Hong Kong, they were thrown wide open. A local producer named Raymond Chow, who had recently started his own studio, Golden Harvest, saw the massive potential in Bruce. He offered him something no American studio would: creative control and a leading role. Bruce Lee was done waiting for permission. He was done trying to convince people of his worth. If Hollywood wouldn't change for him, he would build his own kingdom and prove his value to the entire world, on his own terms. His return to Hong Kong wasn't a retreat, it was a strategic advance. The stage was now set for a cinematic revolution that would not only make him the biggest movie star on the planet, but would also change the face of action movies forever. The legend was just beginning. Thanks for watching. If you want to see how Bruce Lee took Hong Kong by storm and created a new era of martial arts cinema, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications for the next episode. You won't want to miss it.